Hey everybody, my name is Christa and I just graduated with a degree in rhetoric, so I thought it would be fitting to give you an oral presentation of my research. So I chose to focus on the Hellenistic aspects of the Greek theater because I have a love and passion for the arts and the theater. I was a ballet dancer for 16 years, so I think since I have some personal insight into theaters nowadays, I wondered, what did theaters really look like outdoors in the Greek era? What if I could really piece this together and give you a visual description using my knowledge of performing? I've danced in the Fox Theater and high school stages and Russell Auditorium here at Georgia College, so lots of stages and lots of visuals I think I can really help describe. So jumping right in, Khan Academy actually breaks it down really simply. It describes that the Greek theater was a large open-air structure used for dramatic performance. Our book actually states that the Hellenistic theater began from the ruler of mainland Greece, who was Alexander the Great, and he conquered the Persian Empire, which extended his realm into present-day India and Egypt. He created the first great empire to be launched from Europe. Wherever he went, he built new cities and promoted Greek culture and learning. As a result, the entire Eastern Mediterranean was Hellenized, hence where we got the Hellenistic theater. The Ancient History Encyclopedia gave me great insight, and it describes that the ancient Greeks built open-air theaters where the public could watch the performances of Greek comedy, tragedy, and satire plays. They then exported the idea to their colonies throughout their cities so that theaters became a typical place to go in all of the Greek cities. The early theaters appeared from the 4th and 6th century BCE and were actually built entirely of wood. They first evolved from a stage area of just dirt and natural earth on a natural hill, and the stage was built about 1 meter above the ground and had steps all along the front. Now, this was a really big deal at the time. Actors performed on the stage, which had an entrance on the left and the right sides, and there was a single central doorway in the back. Now, this was somewhat used to resemble a temple or a palace of some sorts, and this was really similar to how a stage is set today. So let me clarify two definitions for you. The Ancient History Encyclopedia says a scene is the backdrop of the stage. First, it was kind of a tent or a curtained area for actors to change costumes, but later it really became a more permanent structure, and it actually acted as scenery for the performance. So oftentimes in ballets, these large drapes will come down from the top of the rods, and they have a background image on them, and it's painted for either a garden scene or maybe the snow scene in the Nutcracker, for example. Now another definition I'll share is periskinia, and these are the wings at the end of each side of the skiing stage. So the periskinia is stage left and stage right. The stage scene could have also had a top platform for where the actors would maybe, for example, play a god. They would speak down upon the audience or to the actors on the stage. Think about maybe like the balcony scene in Romeo and Juliet, for example. The excitement of performances was really enhanced with just one or two of these technical additions. They didn't have much, so they could have used like a wheeled platform that was pushed out from the doorway in the back, or used to dramatically reveal new scenery. Or maybe one time I think the book said they used a crane that came from the periskinia stage right and was used to lift actors who were playing gods or heroes, to have them soar across the stage or have them kind of held up higher to emphasize their power and reign. Now, as far as the audience goes, the Greek theater is composed of the seating area, which is the theatron, and then a circular space for the chorus to perform, for the orchestra, and then the stage. Now, there was tiered seating in the theatron, which provided space for the spectators and the audience to come. Think of kind of a typical lecture-style hall in a college classroom where the rows go up and there's seating along every row. They also had two side aisles, which provided access for the orchestra. Now, at the end of the 5th century BCE, there was a rectangular stage being built, similar to how you see stages today, with wings on each side, periskinia stage left and stage right. But still, only the front few rows were made of stone and the rest of wood. So a little bit of an upgrade, but there was really gorgeous monumental entrances that were built at the sides of the stage for the public to enter. Then, in the 4th century BCE, all the seats were made in stone, and walkways were made between sections of seats to help, guide access for the audience. Now, That's a really big deal at fancy theaters in order to kind of have you leave and enter the theater in a proper order. So finally, the stage scenery or the backdrop also finally became made of stone, and maybe long semi-columns were added, typically how you see in Rome, and the theater had finally acquired the architectural form, which became more or less the standard across the Greek world. Now, our book states that Greek architects liked to build their theaters in places that gave the audience a spectacular view, not just of the actors on the stage, but also of the landscape behind. Theaters took advantage of hillsides and naturally sloping terrain because you could see through and over these really beautiful buildings. So they no longer used painted backdrops, they were using the real landscape of the natural earth. For example, the 2nd century BCE theater at the Pergamon in modern-day Turkey had one of the most breathtaking views. It's perched on a steep and on a hillside looking down on the plain of the river and Caicus below. So it really would have been a wonderful place to watch such involved plays. Now, speaking of plays, let's dive into one more area of what kind of scenes were maybe performed on these beautiful stages. So I found 2 JSTOR articles that explain new comedy that Hellenistic writers really favored. Many plays were essentially character studies, and others were based on myths. Our book describes a typical plot revolved around a young man who falls in love and goes against his father's will, but he wants to marry a girl he fell in love with. I mean, most of the play's conclusions end up being a misunderstanding about who they really were, what their intentions really were, but in a comedic sense. They actually show us certain societal conventions during a period when values and morals were really being challenged. So the theater is just one example of the creation and the use of dramatic and theatrical architecture and up-and-coming language and views. So I just took a class this past semester on postmodernism, and I can kind of conclude that this legacy is so durable and so profound that it helps explain why the ancient Greek architecture and the original tenets of Greek design are still so prevalent and so visible in our postmodern world. And you can really still see these original skeletons and of the theater's long drapes and long poles, and even the stone seats are still there. So I hope you all maybe one day get to go and enjoy it, and I hope you all enjoy this short insight into this gorgeous Greek architecture of the theater. So thank you all for watching. Bye.